Well, hey there, WellHouse Church. Pastor Cullen here. Excited to be back with you for another week of storytelling. You know, as I was kind of preparing for what I wanted to say this morning, our story today I can't shake the parallel storytelling that I'm seeing with WellHouse's beginning. Our origin story feels very similar to what I think Luke may be communicating to us about this story in Paul's life. And so, let me tell it to you. I was a very, very young kid, and I was real dumb. I did a lot of stupid things when I was a young kid. I was 20 years old, so junior in college, just started at HBU. My first 4-year university, taking real theology classes and beginning to learn how to do theology and pastoral ministry and all of the things that are required to run a church and do this job. And I'll never forget, it came from a fundamentalist background that was told that women were the weaker sex. And because they were the weaker sex, and there's a couple of different Bible verses that people would quote, but women cannot preach, women cannot teach or have authority over men. And I was at HBU, 20-year-old kid, and I just started reading the Bible. And I was reading the Bible, I was seeing all these women do all of these things. I was seeing women in leadership positions. I was seeing women correct the teaching of men. I was seeing all of these things happen in the Bible. And I'll never forget, I asked this question: why can't women preach? And me asking that question, exploring that, and coming to a place where I no longer believed that women were prohibited from that, I saw a lot of my institution/church community turn on me, like almost instantaneously, for asking a question and pursuing an answer, which I thought was very liberating, which I now see as the problem. It was liberating, and that is what they did not want. And so I left that church community, and I began what is called the journey of deconstruction. And so I moved a little bit, I shifted gears a little bit, and then I ran into a very similar problem when I started asking questions, the same types of questions, about the LGBTQ community. And I very quickly saw my church community and the institution turn on me again. That is the world that Paul lives in. Paul is asking some questions about the theological faith that's connected to historical Judaism. And the Jews are turning on him to the point that they're trying to kill him. And he is finding safety in his government. And so he was just transported to Caesarea to be before the governor at a hearing. Now remember those crazy goons that decided they were going to take a vow not to eat or drink anything until Paul was dead? Yeah, well, that was 5 days ago, until the chief priest and a couple of his elders and a lawyer show up to present their case before the governor Felix. And their accusations are quite nonsense. Like, they're not real accusations of any merit for anything, but they got a high fancy lawyer. And so Paul responds to them. And basically what he says is, verse 14, "But this I admit to you, that according to the way of Jesus, which they call a sect," right? So they acknowledge that what he is doing is a sect of Judaism. Specifically, a sect of the Nazarenes. Jesus of Nazareth. So they call us sect. I worship the God of our ancestors, believing everything laid down according to the law or written in the prophets. I have a hope in God, and a hope that they themselves also accept, that there will be a resurrection of both the righteous and the unrighteous. So Paul thinks that his only thing that he's on trial for, and he said this multiple times, is a question over the resurrection of the dead, which is a debated tertiary issue in the Jewish faith. Both Pharisees and Sadducees believe differently about this, and both of those are offices of Judaism and have church, and they have Jewish leaders in those groups. This is a very acceptable thing to do. This is about power and corruption in the church. I think that is what Luke is trying to get you to see. And so Paul says, I have this question about the resurrection of the dead. I know that everybody, righteous and unrighteous, is going to be resurrected. Verse 16. Paul says, therefore, I do my best always to have a clear conscience toward God and all people. I think that is the heart of it. I think that right there is what Luke is kind of framing the problem around. Is that there are some people, unfortunately, in positions of power in religious institutions that don't live according to a clear conscience before God and all people. They will pseudo-live according to a conscience of God, but they will happily forsake other humans in the name of God. I'm not sure I understand. But there's definitely some disconnect here. And what I see and what I think I want to ask you today is about this last part. So Felix, the governor, says, I'm not sure about any of this. So I want the tribune to come down. The one that was kind of involved in this, I want him to come down. Keep Paul in custody until he gets here. Verse 23. Then he ordered the centurion to keep him in custody, Paul, but to let him have some liberty and not to prevent any of his friends from taking care of his needs. That's what the institution of the church is supposed to be doing. That's what the religious institution is supposed to be doing. And yet, they're not. Friends, this is the same problem we find ourselves in today. People are not interested in the church anymore because we're not a community that meets needs. We're not a community at all. People can find better community outside the church than they can inside the church. This is why people have even adopted the word community. This is our word. And they've adopted it for the yoga community, the bearded community, the XYZ community. Whatever group of people want to do something together, they've called it a community because people long for community, to have friends, be present with them, and meet each other's needs. This is the call of the Christians in Acts chapter 2, that they're giving to anyone who has need. This is what we are supposed to be doing. And yet, I fear that today, at least the church in America, looks far more like the Jewish leaders than it does like Paul and the Christians. And so, WellHouse Church, I'm not perfect by any means. I don't have all the answers. I would love to hear your thoughts about how we as a community of people, both WellHouse as an institution and us as individuals, can be better about community, can be better about meeting the needs of people, that we can look like this place of safety, that we can be this place of community and relationship that we're all so longing for.